It's November 1st, Matt Sager podcast on a Thursday. I'm Matt Sager. How was your Halloween? Would you like to know how mine was?
I got it wrong.
I really did. Say it again, Charlie.
I got it wrong.
Yeah, my Halloween was... Look, Halloween is always great and fun and everything else, but, you know, I live right in the zone as far as the parade goes. So everything was cordoned off. Long story short, I had a party I wanted to go to, all kinds of Halloween-y stuff I wanted to do. I bought a bottle of wine. There was a friend in from out of town and a bunch of voiceover companions. We're all hanging out together, and the police cordoned me off inside my apartment. I know, there's not a lot about living in Greenwich Village that there is to complain about. It's very rare that one feels sort of imprisoned here. Typically, people come here to have fun, and it's weird when, like, your home turf. Like, you know how much of a hard-on Anthony Kiedis and the Red Hot Chili Peppers have for Hollywood? I have at least 3 times that much love and propriety and sense of belonging for Greenwich Village. I was born here. I was raised here. I've lived here my entire life. I've managed to make it to way older than I'm going to tell you, never having left. And 9/11 was the first time I realized you could be imprisoned here, that everything good about it could be taken from it, and you could want to stay and protect it. And people with arms can come and keep you from entering or from exiting your home, or giving you a choice. You can either stay and be okay and be able to return home at some point tonight, or leave, and whenever this parade ends and the police presence dies down, then you can return home. I was not going to wait until what ended up being 4 a.m. before the helicopter stopped and the cordons came down, before I could be allowed entry to my beloved domicile, the place where my kitty cats live, home. So, Halloween 2018 for Matt was basically... I'll sum it up for you.
I got it wrong.
It was a shame. My buddy, I'm very sorry I didn't get to see you. All the people at the party, I really did buy that wine. Just FYI. And you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to bring it to you and I'm going to drink it tonight. Look, it's going to be winter soon. I'm not letting wine go to waste. Come on. What I will do, however, for the listeners of this podcast who have been requesting that I do so, get back to recapping Daredevil Season 3, which, by the way, I think I might have some idea about a correlation between these requests. You know, when I first started getting all these asks of, hey, start recapping Daredevil Season 3, my thought was, well, if you're such fans of Daredevil, I mean, I'm happy, all too happy to do it. But wouldn't you be watching it? And I don't know the reasons for this, but clearly people prefer to get this particular season of Daredevil in encapsulated podcast form, because viewership has dropped 60%. And as I recap tonight's episode, the reasons for that may actually begin to come into focus. Episode 2, not a strong episode. This really ought to have been part 2 of a 2-part season premiere. That was just a double-length episode. Just as episode 1 was only sort of okay, episode 2 is a big dip in quality from that. I'm just going to prepare you for that. We start with the immediate aftermath. Again, this is why it really should have been a 2-parter. We begin with the immediate aftermath of the final scene from the season premiere, in which Fisk tells Agent Nadim that he's ready to make a deal. That means he's going to spill. And as I said at the time, whatever else Fisk may be, he is an invaluable intelligence asset to the FBI. He's also going to jerk them around and play them like they've never been played before, but not before they get a sense of some real grandiosity, especially Nadim, kind of a sad sack, who suddenly is a rock star as he takes down the Albanian mob.
FBI! 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 FBI, don't move! Oh, stop! Freeze! Where are you going? Off the bed! Hands up, show me hands! Cuff him, cuff him!
So what job?
No right, boy.
Catrece niente più volto. No, non so per cosa.
And he gets a standing O. Like I said, he's a rock star.
We got Mother Teresa. He actually bagged that asshole.
Got his number 1 and number 2 also. And 2 judges,
Way to go, Red.
district police cap.
I love that they've got this gigantic bearded Slavic man whose code name is Mother Teresa, whose image he has tattooed on his back. When you're a Fed and you've got a bunch of Eastern Europeans with tattoos in a drug den, that is indeed something to celebrate, and celebrate Nadim does.
Freaking deputy mayor.
It's gonna be a messy day for City Hall. The Albanians had to be biting those guys off with more than tail.
Well, Burger's got their computer, so we're gonna find their money. Once we start tracking it, who knows how far this goes.
Thank you, Wilson to Fisk.
He's a gift that's gonna keep on giving.
Ah, Nadim. You naive, dumb idiot. I mean, no, congratulations. You're doing great. Seriously, let's keep this Fisk thing happening, because he's not known for outsmarting people or playing people. He's not some kind of satanic mastermind. No. I think you're going to be very happy with Wilson Fisk, Mr. Nadeem. I commend you. Oh, and speaking of Fisk, he takes his morning constitutional in the workout room, does a little bit of weightlifting, and gets shanked. Yeah, snitching on Albanians, not necessarily the best of ideas.
Snitch.
But you can't just shank Fisk. He just pulls the knife right out. Now he's getting ready to drop the weight on this poor guy's head, the guy who shanked him. And he lets it drop right next to the guy's head. Perhaps he understands that as an intelligence asset, he can't go around killing other inmates willy-nilly. Pun not intended. Maybe he's got a bigger scheme. I think with Wilson Fisk, you should always assume there's at least one backup plan he's got working. That whatever he's saying to you out of one side of his mouth, the real stuff that's going on, his actual thoughts, are silent. With the possible exceptions of, I'm going to say, Elektra, should she return, Daredevil half the time, and Vanessa probably 80% of the time. Vanessa's interesting. You know, she humanizes him in a great way. And honestly, love is a redeeming feature, but every asshole monster murderer loves someone. I've known people in my life, I've had people in my life who were the worst monsters you could ever hope to encounter. And they justified everything because they were in love with someone. And it didn't play. Didn't play with me, didn't play with anyone, didn't make them more charming or somehow societally acceptable. It takes the grace, charm, and acting chops of Vincent D'Onofrio.
This D'Onofrio has had enough Rio!
To make love a redeeming quality in a monster like Wilson Fisk. Anyway, Agent Nadeem may be celebrating, but Matt Murdock is not. Another reason why this should have been a simple, very long premiere episode is that between the events of last episode and the events of this one, the point is never made. You've got to watch both episodes back to back to really understand that part of why Matt is being such an idiot, mopey, whiny prick who rejects the love and care of Sister Maggie and is hiding from his friends and loved ones. Just being a petulant jerk who went out on essentially a suicide mission, knowing he couldn't beat a guy in a boxing match in the church. He went out to stop a kidnapping and nearly got himself killed. Tried to die, but failed. Failed even at that. And so a very broken Daredevil, who, it now becomes clear, believes that he should have died in that explosion at the end of The Defenders, and feels purposeless. A warrior's death is great. Being extra handicapped when all your life has been about overcoming handicaps and not being able to be a champion for justice when a superhero is really all you are. He's mourning. I mean, he's being a big crybaby, but he is in mourning, as he explains to Maggie, who is doing her best, but whose patience is running very thin.
I'm impervious to bad attitude. So you can throw your self-pitying bullshit at me all day, Murdoch, and I'll still be standing right here. Pissed off, maybe, but right here. You're gonna talk to me.
Why did you become a nun?
I heard God's call.
So you feel like being a nun is what you're meant to be?
Yes. Very much.
What if you couldn't be one anymore? If it were taken from you?
Your point being that if we can't fulfill our calling, we might be better off as worm food?
Answer the question.
I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't lose faith. I'd find some other purpose.
If you can be anything else, it was never really your calling. Just tell me honestly. If you could no longer be a nun, wouldn't you grieve?
Of course I would.
Then please, go away.
You know, if you can't be a nun, if you can't be a superhero, you can always, take it from me, start a podcast. It's not that hard. I've worked with people in radio who basically don't hear. It's fine. You feel the vibrations. Get your talking points together, have them ready for you in Braille or in an assisted app. OS X has many of them. Start a podcast. But that's not really the route Daredevil's going to take. That would explain the 60% drop-off in viewership. Matt is not going to start a podcast this season that I know of so far. And speaking of people in search of a purpose, Nadim has gotten Fisk to flip. He's made this very high-profile arrest of a big bearded man named Mother Teresa. And so now he thinks he ought to be given, look, he's been working Fisk this whole time. Now suddenly it's a desirable gig. And they don't want him to have it. They want to give it to some big high-profile Fed who's been on the radar for some time, who they've been watching and waiting to give a promotion to. Not the schlub who's been working the Fisk detail when it was unromantic like Nadim. But he makes his case to his boss, comes right out and says, look, I got a big favor to ask of you. And of course he knows what it is.
I put you on Fisk detail. Your file is required reading. You'll be naked. There will be questions.
I've got answers.
I've got a boss, too. And he's got a hard-on for agents in financial holes. I'm sorry.
No. No way.
Easy, Ray.
No. You tell DC that none of this could have happened without the unexpected connection between me and Wilson Fisk. Because that's the truth. And then none of the other shit in my file will matter. Come on, Tammy. How am I supposed to get out from under?
Okay. He's yours. But you need to keep him talking, Ray.
I got this.
He better last years. Because he goes dry, we're both burned.
So you've got a compromised agent. Guy who's very vulnerable to exploitation. Let's put him in charge of the Fisk case. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, this is going to work out just great for all parties. I am very confident in Agent Nadim's judgment. It's gotten him this far in life. He's deep in some kind of credit hole, sufficiently deep that he basically can't fulfill his duties as an FBI agent. But let's propel him to the top of the ladder, put him in with the guy most known for conning people and separating fools from their money. And let's just see what happens. Maybe this is just a big social experiment, but I think this is what you'd call a tactical error. But Nadim gets his ask, he's granted his wish, and he's summoned by his new boss, intelligence asset to come see him at his at prison. Excuse me. I don't know how I'm confusing office and prison and boss with informant. I must have some weird backwards view of what is clearly an officer and CI relationship with no kind of underhanded shenanigans going on. Anyway, Nadim goes and sees Fisk, who's got some concerns.
You okay? He said it was superficial.
I find it quite profound.
Don't start. We're not playing games here.
It's deadly serious for me.
Some guy with a shank?
It's not something I fear a great deal. But we're not dealing with one person here. Word is out. Everyone knows. Guards and inmates, it seems they know I'm cooperating with you.
What you are going to continue to do, Mr. Fisk. This was not a one-off. You want us to help Vanessa clear herself of criminal charges? You need to continue to deliver actionable information. Do you understand?
I've suddenly become a target within these walls here. Do you understand? I'm helping you to help Vanessa. I can't do either of those things if I'm dead.
Now, Nadim is a guy who is used to things being fleeting in life. He had money and he lost it. He had this cush gig with Fisk and he's nearly lost it. He's already got the job on a probationary basis. So Fisk calls him in and says, listen, I'm your big intelligence asset and you're going to get me killed. What good am I to you then? And Nadim is in a bind, and it is understandable because not everyone saw the first 2 seasons of Daredevil or has read Marvel Comics for 30, 40 years. Nadim's just a guy who wants to do the best for himself, his family. That is made very clear. He's not some guy who just is fighting for what's right, although he is a good guy. But he is extremely vulnerable to exploitation, and he's a little dumb. This, I suspect, will not end well for him. But then again, it's Daredevil, Season 3. It might not end well for anybody. But getting back to the crime that Matt stopped last week, you know, he did save the woman's life, and he protected a man from being kidnapped. That man was one Rostam Kazemi, a real estate mogul. The woman he saved was the guy's daughter, Nita. Now, the guy is under hospital care. The woman is completely safe. But Matt did not get the bad guys. As you may recall, they left him bleeding in an alley. And he's got the devil's work to do. At the very least, he couldn't get them then, but he can still track them down now because he's got super smell, a power that in New York City, I would imagine is a very mixed blessing. I would have wanted a stick if I'd had Matt's powers to guide me and to help me block out odors like 99.8% of the time. But for Matt, it makes him a bloodhound, and he's on the trail of some blood.
Excuse me, I'm looking for a dry cleaner.
Not doing pickups right now, but we're on 14th Street. Address is on the side there.
Here's where it gets awkward. I'm actually looking for a different place. See, I got a whiff of their delivery van last night, and it didn't smell like this, you know? Not like chemicals, it was more herbal.
Kind of grassy, maybe?
Yeah, sure, like that.
I know the place.
See, this is another reason why this should have been one long episode. Matt goes up to a laundromat truck and goes, yeah, no, I'm looking for something kind of, you know, wink, wink, herby. That is what he's looking for. They were trying to load this real estate mogul into the back of a laundry van. That is the criminal's front, a laundromat. But if all you've done is watch the previously on recap, if you haven't watched these 2 episodes back to back, that is a rather complex string of events that is left rather poorly explained. I know that these shows are designed to be binged, but for those who don't binge, they ought to be more accessible. This is a problem that is endemic to comics in general. If you pick up an issue of Daredevil right now, it's going to be part 8 of some storyline that is being written in advance of a trade paperback. Comics have struggled with this forever, but sadly it's made its way to Netflix as well. Fortunately, you've got me to recap everything for you. And also you've got Karen Page, who is desperate to cover the building collapse where Matt allegedly died, and whose editor is putting her on any other detail, trying to get her to drop the obsession. Because, you know, she is under the impression that Matt is alive because he is, and he's being a dick, and he's hiding. And so, interestingly, in pursuit of getting her off the Murdoch case, her editor inadvertently puts her right on it by having her go and interview Nita Kazemi in the hospital. Kazemi, who had a rather public childhood, and that's part of why she was out with her father that night. They were trying to reconcile, because I guess TMZ chased her around all the time as a kid. He was that kind of real estate mogul. Not the kind who becomes president, but the kind who nonetheless was enough of a public character that his daughter never got a private life, and I guess resented him for it. Karen is sympathetic to pretty much everyone, and is in some ways uniquely sympathetic to Miss Kazemi. But in trying to get answers about the attempted kidnapping of her father, she gets that answer that nobody wanted Karen Page to get. An answer that puts her on yet another trail.
We were at dinner. We were trying to patch things up, you know? We were walking to the car, and these 2 men grabbed my father. They tried to put him into this van to kidnap him. We only got away because the other guy attacked him.
What other guy? You said there's another guy?
Yeah, he came out of nowhere. He had this black mask over his face.
See, Matt thinks that wearing a black mask means people won't figure out it's him. And especially if he covers his eyes, no one would ever suspect the guy with the mask covering his eyes is the blind superhero. And I believe that this is not a writer's error, that this is intentionally them going, Matt is so lost that he thinks he's doing a great job at hiding his identity, running around in a black suit instead of a red one, and covering his eyes to advertise his blindness to the world. It does reek of a guy who some part of him deep inside is crying out for his friends to come find him. What they'd have to say to him after all this time in hiding, after all the abuse he put them through in the first place, the danger he's put their lives in time and time again, it's not totally clear what they would have to say to him. But Karen certainly wants to have her say, whatever it is. She is obsessed. Meanwhile, Nadim is going to his bosses at the Justice Department and the FBI with a ludicrous request, an ask that is just beyond the pale. He's got his asset to protect. Wilson Fisk, he's already given them Mother Teresa. I can't say that and not laugh. But in so doing, he's going to give them the entire Albanian mob, all these corrupt city officials, and that's just the appetizer before Fisk swallows everybody whole. I mean, before he gives up all his assets and the FBI saves the day. And Fisk returns to prison like the criminal dog that he is. That is obviously the path that we're heading down. So, in service of that, Nadim pitches something akin to house arrest in a recently seized mansion.
With Fisk's intel, we beheaded the Albanian syndicate in 1 day. 1 single day. No loss of life, no injuries, no mayhem. I mean, look at the tape. We got their documents and their data, and we're gonna get their money. Best of all, we backed the corrupt officials whose protection they were selling, meaning that a lot of cases they've been interfering with may finally get somewhere. Like, none of us like it. It makes me want to throw up to admit it. But New York is safer tonight because of Wilson Fisk.
Now I need a shower.
If we keep him talking, Fisk will give up others. This deal will save lives.
Yeah, not before it ends at least one. I can promise you that. This is Wilson Fisk we're talking about. But are you going to find that out tonight on this episode of the Matt Sager podcast? I don't think so. You want to know why?
This D'Onofrio has had enough Rio!
That's right. Daredevil Season 3, Episode 2 is going to be a two-part episode of this podcast. So thank you for listening to tonight's episode, Part 1 of Daredevil Season 3, Episode 2. Part 2 of Daredevil Season 3, Episode 2. This is very hard to say. We'll be on tomorrow night's episode, Friday, November 2nd of the Matt Sager podcast. In the meantime, if you would like to get in touch with me, you can do so by email, matt@mattsager.com, or by phone, 646-535-4788. You can also hit me up on Twitter @MattSager, Instagram Real Matt Sager, Facebook The Matt Sager, and I've got a voiceover page there as well, Matt Sager VO. This podcast page is Matt Sager Podcast, and if you want more social media links, along with more episodes of this podcast, articles, blog posts, my voiceover reels, contact info, everything else, you can head on over to mattsagervoiceover.com.